Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind, is a book written by Yuval Noah Harari that explores the history of human evolution and civilization. The book is divided into 4 parts, each of which covers a different period in human history. Chapter 1: An Animal of No Significance. The author introduces the concept of Homo sapiens, one of the 6 human species that existed about 70,000 years ago, and how they managed to survive and dominate the planet. He explains that the key factor that enabled sapiens to outsmart and outlast other human species was the cognitive revolution, a genetic mutation that gave them the ability to communicate complex and abstract ideas through language. He argues that this ability allowed sapiens to create and share imagined realities, such as myths, religions, laws, and money, that enabled large-scale cooperation and coordination among strangers. Chapter 2: The Tree of Knowledge. The author explores the origins and consequences of the cognitive revolution, which occurred around 70,000 years ago and transformed sapiens from insignificant animals to the rulers of the world. He describes how sapiens developed the capacity for fiction, gossip, and theory of mind, which enabled them to form larger and more flexible social networks than other animals. He also discusses how sapiens used their imagination to create new tools, art, and culture, and how they began to manipulate their environment and other species to their advantage. Chapter 3: A Day in the Life of Adam and Eve. The author examines the lifestyle and culture of the foragers, the hunter-gatherers who lived from the cognitive revolution until the agricultural revolution, about 12,000 years ago. He challenges the common assumption that foragers lived in a state of poverty, ignorance, and violence, and argues that they actually enjoyed a relatively comfortable, healthy, and diverse life. He compares the foragers' diet, work, leisure, social structure, and worldview with those of modern humans, and suggests that foragers may have been happier and more satisfied than their descendants. Chapter 4: The Flood of Noah. The author traces the expansion and impact of sapiens across the globe, from their origins in Africa to their arrival in Australia, America, and the Pacific Islands. He shows how sapiens caused the extinction of many large animals, such as mammoths, giant kangaroos, and moas, by overhunting, habitat destruction, and introducing new diseases and predators. He also explains how sapiens adapted to different environments and climates, and how they interacted and interbred with other human species, such as Neanderthals and Denisovans. Chapter 5: History's Biggest Fraud. The author analyzes the causes and effects of the agricultural revolution, which began around 12,000 years ago and marked the transition from foraging to farming. He argues that the agricultural revolution was a trap that enslaved sapiens to their crops and animals and made them work harder, live in crowded and unhealthy conditions, and suffer from famine, disease, and war. He also explores how the agricultural revolution led to the emergence of new social hierarchies, such as class, gender, and caste, and new imagined realities, such as property, justice, and gods. Chapter 6: Building Pyramids. The author investigates the origins and development of the first large-scale human civilizations, which arose after the agricultural revolution and lasted until the scientific revolution, about 500 years ago. He explains how the surplus of food and resources enabled the formation of complex societies, with thousands or millions of people, organized by political, religious, and economic institutions. He also examines how these societies created and maintained their imagined realities, such as empires, kingdoms, and nations, and how they justified their power, inequality, and violence. Chapter 7: Memory Overload. The author explores the challenges and solutions that human civilizations faced as they grew larger and more complex, especially in terms of communication, administration, and coordination. He describes how writing, money, and empires emerged as efficient and universal systems that enabled the exchange of information, goods, and services among diverse and distant populations. He also discusses how these systems facilitated the spread of cultures, religions, and ideologies, and how they shaped the identity and worldview of individuals and groups. Chapter 8: There is no justice in history. The author examines the impact of human civilizations on the natural world and other species, and how they dealt with the ethical and moral dilemmas that arose from their actions. He illustrates how sapiens exploited, domesticated, and exterminated many plants and animals, and how they altered the landscape and the climate to their benefit or detriment. He also questions the assumptions and values that underlie the human treatment of other beings, and whether there is any objective basis for justice, equality, and rights. Chapter 9. The Arrow of History. The author evaluates the diversity and stability of human cultures and civilizations, and whether there is any direction or purpose to their historical development. He argues that there is no single or linear path of progress or decline, but rather a multitude of trajectories and outcomes influenced by various factors, such as geography, ecology, and ideology. He also suggests that the main engine of historical change is not individual genius or heroism, but cultural evolution, which operates by trial and error and often produces unintended and unpredictable consequences. Chapter 10. The Scent of Money. The author investigates the origins and evolution of capitalism, the economic system that dominates the modern world and shapes the lives of billions of people. He explains how money, credit, and trust enabled the creation and growth of markets, trade, and commerce, and how they fostered innovation, exploration, and globalization. He also examines the benefits and drawbacks of capitalism, such as wealth, prosperity, and freedom, as well as poverty, inequality, and exploitation. Chapter 11. Imperial Visions. The author explores the phenomenon of imperialism, the political system that seeks to expand and control territories and populations, and how it relates to capitalism, science, and religion. He shows how imperialism has been a common and successful strategy for human civilizations, and how it has shaped the history and culture of many regions and peoples. He also analyzes the motivations and justifications of imperialists, and how they often combined economic interests, scientific curiosity, and religious zeal. Chapter 12. The Law of Religion. The author examines the role and influence of religion, the system of human norms and values that is founded on a belief in a superhuman order, and how it has coexisted and interacted with science and politics. He distinguishes between three types of religions: animism, which believes in a multitude of spirits and forces; theism, which believes in one or more gods; and humanism, which believes in the human experience and reason. He also traces the historical development and transformation of various religions, such as polytheism, monotheism, Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, and liberalism. Chapter 13. The Secret of Success. The author investigates the reasons and factors behind the rise and dominance of modern science, the system of knowledge that is based on empirical observation and experimentation, and how it has changed the world and humanity. He argues that the key to the success of science is its willingness to admit ignorance and seek new discoveries, and its alliance with other systems, such as capitalism and imperialism, which provide the resources and incentives for scientific research. He also discusses the achievements and challenges of science, such as the exploration of new lands and realms, the development of new technologies and medicines, and the creation of new problems and dangers. Chapter 14. The Discovery of Ignorance. The author evaluates the impact and implications of the scientific revolution, which began around 500 years ago and ushered in a new era of human history and culture. He describes how the scientific revolution shifted the human perspective from a passive and humble acceptance of the divine order to an active and ambitious quest for the natural laws and the mastery of nature. He also explains how the scientific revolution gave rise to new imagined realities, such as the idea of progress, the concept of the individual, and the vision of the future. Chapter 15. The Marriage of Science and Empire. The author examines the relationship and interaction between science and empire, and how they mutually supported and reinforced each other in the modern era. He illustrates how science enabled empires to expand and conquer new territories by providing them with superior weapons, navigation, and communication tools, and by legitimizing their claims and actions.